Good evening, everybody. I'm Jordan with we're doing a little special edition here of some Thanksgiving football here on Vareity Sports Network. I'm coming from usually on Sunday morning tailgates. We're running a little bit extra here. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Last time we talked, it was the T&B blow up. Brian came on for 2 seconds, gave me a piece of his mind. We got back together. Jordan, talking with you football, I knew how intelligent you were, so I couldn't wait to get back on, talk football. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody who's listening. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Jordan. Happy Thanksgiving to your family, your daughter. I saw you post about your daughter. Beautiful thing. How's everything going? Are you doing anything exciting for Thanksgiving?
We're doing the family thing, going from house to house, and I'm gonna eat till I explode. How about you guys?
That's the true Thanksgiving spirit. I'll be going to my parents. I'm excited. I love Thanksgiving dinner. It's probably my favorite holiday. A lot of people are like Christmas. I just love Thanksgiving. I don't need all the presents. I just like hanging out with my family, eating dinner, and the football is on. And we got another guest, Daren from Fat Boy Fadeaway. How you doing, my guy? Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. You guys got the Raiders background. You're too kind. It's very nice of you.
It was the most football-oriented one. We knew you were coming out. We're like, let's get the Raiders here. No, I was only football what I could find. That wasn't so 49er-oriented.
You want the Jerry Rice Bengals background?
I felt that was a little too offensive.
Too offensive for Jordan. That's understandable. What's up, guys? How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing good. Just kind of got done with a few family things here. Wrapped up a few little dinner stuff going on. Got a little window here from the wife, and we're good to go talk a little football with you guys. Not on a Sunday night, Jordan. So a little Wednesday night preview for us here. So this will be good to talk the Thanksgiving games a little bit here.
Yeah, we wanted to touch up on a little bit what were your takes on Monday night and the finale there between the Philadelphia Eagles and Chiefs.
My biggest take was the Chiefs can't score in the second half. They can't score. I mean,
is there something to say for?
What are they averaging 5 points per game in the second half now?
I think it was something ridiculously low. The Eagles really didn't do anything that fancy in the second half. Defensively, it was a lot of drop balls. Kind of remind me of Week 1, really, against Detroit. I mean, he had the game winner there at the end, and the same, just off the fingertips.
Patrick Mahomes threw the ball 43 times for 177 yards, averaging 4.1 yards per attempt, which is so un-Patrick Mahomes. Like, have they just – I mean, you mentioned the drop ball. Have they just lost – like the weapons where Kelce can't be as effective? I mean, he still scored a touchdown, but he didn't fumble. But you can't count on a fumble every game. But have they just lost, like, the weaponry due to, like, contracts where the offense won't be the same? I mean, he's still great. Don't get me wrong. You put the ball in MVS's hands to win the game. He didn't come down with it. This isn't a Patrick Mahomes critique, more a Chiefs critique. Do they just not have the weapons? They're still going to compete because the defense is great in Mahomes, but it's not the same to me. Can they get it together and be a 30-point-a-game offense?
I don't think they have to. I mean, I think their defense ranks number 2 in the NFL right now overall, right below Cleveland in yards allowed, points scored again. I think they kind of got away from Pacheco. You didn't see a lot of carries in the second half, and it's not like they were down multiple scores, so they kind of went into this 2-minute. Every drive kind of felt like it was a 2-minute offense. They rushed to the line, get there, get a hard count, try to get them off sides. Just kind of looked, I don't know. It didn't look very the Chiefs that we're used to seeing probably the last 2 or 3.
It's a whole new team. It's completely defense.
The drops. I mean, they can't catch a ball.
No.
I mean, you guys probably already touched on it, but that was
we just started talking about it. But they also, I was listening to the Travis Kelce, Jason Kelce podcast, great podcast. Travis Kelce said they haven't scored in the second half in like 4 or 5 games. That's absurd. That's just ridiculous. Like, that can't continue.
As I said, they're averaging 5 points. Do you think Eric Bieniemy makes a difference?
He must. Because it's not like the receivers were better last year. The receivers weren't great last year outside of Kelce.
they've had like timely drops too, like Tony at the end of games, this guy at the end of games, what's the one with the white guy's name is? Yeah, he got a catch.
Watson.
Kelce fumble.
Killer. If Kelce doesn't fumble, they at least get 3 out of that. That was monstrous.
And the thing is, the defense for the Chiefs answered back with a pick of Jalen Hurts. It's an interesting Chiefs. They're 7-3. I'm not concerned about them, and I think it's hyperbole to pretend like we are. But it's just interesting watching them play this style of football when we haven't seen it since Alex Smith.
Hurts your guys' chances to get that 1 seed and home field advantage against them.
Kill this. I think it's done for her.
I think I've been one of the few. I've been concerned about them. I keep going back to the Jets game. If a couple of flags go the other way, this is a 4-loss team, and they'd only be 1 game in the division. I mean, right now Denver's on a hot streak. The Raiders were on a hot streak up until last week.
Played New York.
But yeah, to me,
but you can't like feel confident in Denver continuing this, watching them play week in and week out. Do you?
I mean, a Super Bowl winning coach and a Super Bowl winning quarterback playing. They're not doing anything flashy. They're playing meat and potatoes football right now. He's not turning the ball over like he was. He's playing consistent and throwing. His pass percentage is about 15 points higher than it was in the first 3 weeks. I mean, it's starting to spell out for him a little bit. So,
yeah, Daren, how much confidence do you have? Any confidence in the Broncos continuing this? I mean, they have had a continuous the last 3 weeks. Just give the ball to Javonte Williams, let Russell Wilson make plays. You have some receivers who are talented in Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. Do you believe in this offense? The defense is obviously legit. Can they keep winning games? You have one hell of a Joker smile, Daren, right now. Can't see you. Is he frozen to you? He left. Yeah. So let's move on to the Eagles, the other side of the AFC or the NFC.
Abysmal, really. I mean, I don't understand these wide receiver screens when they have such a talented running backfield. I mean,
I agree. Keep going. Sorry.
No. I was just saying the play calls to me just don't make any sense. Just time after time after time that a couple of them with Swift broke in the screen game, but I don't understand the fascination behind it.
I mean, I agree with you. I think how talented this Eagles roster is, carries Sirianni. I'm not a big Sirianni guy. I don't think he's that great of a head coach. He keeps winning, but he has, in my opinion, the most loaded roster in the NFL in the trenches. They have the best offensive line, top 2 to 3 defensive line. And then you have Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Swift, who was I believe a first-round pick when he was drafted to the Lions out of Georgia. Do you believe that? Do you feel that way as well, or do you like Sirianni? What are your thoughts on the Eagles and that roster compared to the rest of the NFL?
I mean, their rosters on paper is the best in the NFL to me. I mean, it's just like you said, the receivers, even the late additions, trading for Bird from the Titans, bringing him in when they really weren't bad at safety. They just make grade A trades all the time. Getting Brown there was a big piece. Drafting Devontae was a big piece. Julio Jones is making some plays here up in his prime. So even with his advanced age, he's making solid plays. Swift is awesome in the backfield. The tush push is hilarious every time I see it. 4 to 5
What are your thoughts on the tush push? Do they need to outlaw it? You all for it?
If it's not fit, well, why? Because my team didn't invent it. I mean, that's the only reason I'm mad about it. It's I mean, they have it down to just such a design. The linemen go under a certain way. It opens up a perfect structure for him to not physically hit the ground for a yard or two. I love it.
It just seems to work the same way every time they say hike, he gets kind of stuffed, and then a half second later he has a yard or two, or even 3 sometimes. But I mean, I think, who do you think is the most important person in that play? Is it Hurts or is it Kelce, or is it the guys behind him pushing?
The definitely the center, because if he doesn't make it happen, it doesn't happen. So.
Absolutely. They also mentioned that every time I feel like they do that damn play, they go, Jalen Hurts can squat 600 pounds, no quarterback. I don't know if that means anything, but
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's definitely the line on a QB sneak. It always is. But it's funny how, like, certain quarterbacks are just so good at it. Like Brady was when he was playing. Now Hurts does it. And that's where we are. The Eagles moved to 9-1 on the year. Can anyone pass them in the NFC, or are they going to be the number one seed?
They got an interesting matchup coming up here, but the 40 still there, so we'll see. I think the 49ers can take them down. I don't think Dallas is quite on that level yet. I was kind of talking on Tailgate and the Gridiron about Dallas wins the games they're supposed to win and kind of loses the games we expect them to lose. I don't quite put them in that conversation. They'll win in a wild card, but when push comes to shove, I don't think they're talented enough. But that's that. Besides the 49ers, I really, unless things happen, injuries happen. Any given Sunday is still a thing.
Absolutely. Before we move on to Thursday night games, do you? I know. I haven't really seen it from you. I haven't watched enough Talking the Gridiron to get your real opinion. I can't wait to hear it, or your true opinion. The Eagles face the Bills next week. What are your thoughts on Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills, and could they take down the Eagles, give the Niners a chance when they play the week after that to tie this whole thing up?
I don't know. I don't think the Bills play wildly inconsistent football. Josh Allen as a whole is just a turnover machine in the biggest moments. He'll make I kind of put him in that Dak Prescott area where he makes the yardage, he makes the beautiful passes, he does amazing things on paper, he puts up the stats, he's your fantasy guy. But when push comes to shove with wins, he makes that boneheaded turnover in the fourth quarter and third quarter and just kind of late in the game. He doesn't really play consistent football lately. And the Bills just right now, they don't have enough run game. I think that, you're not going to win without a good run game against that Eagles defense. Nothing's going to slow that pass rush down. And Josh Allen is their run game, whether it's design or scrambling. So I think the Bills are going to get a humbling experience against the Eagles this week.
I think you explained it pretty well with their run game is Josh Allen, and I think Josh Allen will benefit a lot from a play action game, which they just don't have. I'm still a big Josh Allen believer. I know he does make turnover. He has turned the ball over too much this year, and I'm the first one to admit it. But we'll move back to the AFC real quick. We'll be fluid here. Can anyone beat the Chiefs in the AFC other than the Buffalo Bills with the injuries to Deshaun Watson and the injuries to Joe Burrow? Or is this like the AFC seems so weak with the probably their two biggest foes losing their one of their top three at least on the Brown side. They're the most important player on the Bengals side. Can any team beat the Chiefs like just in a one-off game in the AFC?
I'd honestly like to see if Cleveland can do it. I know they lost Denzel Ward this week. That's going to be a huge black eye for the next 2 to 3 weeks out. But the number one defense in the league, they're only giving up 285 yards a game. In this day and age where we are in such a pass-happy league and almost virtually a penalized every time you touch somebody down the field if you're on defense, for that stat right now, you haven't seen a team like that since the 01 Ravens. And that is a huge company to be with right now. I mean, to be with prime Ray Lewis and those guys, just kind of coming into the league, the original Cleveland Browns, if we want to do our history on it. But, I think that would be interesting with Kansas City's struggle if the Browns could make it a one-dimension game and slow it down with a run with Ford and company. They might be able to do it if they can get a quarterback under center that doesn't make a lot of turnovers, whether that would be, the XFL guy, the rookie they started last week, or even how the signing of Joe Flacco turns out, whether that's just depth or somebody they might throw in, because he did throw for over 1,000 yards for the Jets last year. So that is somebody to keep an eye on going forward, in my opinion, if they're looking to push the ball downfield, which if you watch the game last week, the Browns were constantly throwing 5-yard dinkers, 5-yard hitches. in routes. They looked a team really afraid to push the ball downfield. So you're gonna have to push the ball downfield against Kansas City. But if they can get that defense to get going, I think they might be able to do the impossible. They could beat Kansas City, and right now they're 7-3 apiece. They're tied in the AFC for records. So
I don't know if they can score 17 points.
it'd be I'm not a Cleveland fan. I'm speaking.
I think it's the Dolphins. I don't know why people underestimate the Dolphins. I mean, they didn't get destroyed by them in Germany. They have by far the most offensive weapons to throw at Kansas City. They saw them once already. Their cornerbacks are pretty solid.
Their cornerback, Ramsey comes back is a big plus.
I just think the Ravens are what they are. A lot of people say the Ravens are because they're maybe the history behind them, but I think the Dolphins would put the most pressure on the Chiefs. And you have the Hill factor. I feel like that you can't underestimate.
I just think the Dolphins are soft.
The Dolphins don't have that.
On what basis? I mean, they didn't get crushed by the Chiefs.
They haven't won a big game in 5 years.
I mean, I know that wasn't after your wedding. I'm sure you weren't watching. But they didn't get. I don't know. I just don't. I mean, I thought the game against the Raiders they played pretty well.
They're playing the Raiders.
I gotcha. I don't know.
But I mean,
I think they're good. Tyreek Hill's a threat. You can beat
the Ravens. Scare you more than the Dolphins?
No, I'm not scared of the Ravens.
Okay, so that's my point. In the Browns,
I think it's the Bills.
The Bills got to get there.
What was that?
I think the Bills are cooked. I think the Cleveland and Cincinnati trip broke the Bills.
Jordan,
I still believe in Josh Allen. Call me crazy. I just believe. I think he's the fourth best quarterback in the NFL. I don't love. I think he's good. I don't love him.
You think he's top 5?
Yeah, I think he's top 4. I think Burrow, Hurts, and Mahomes are better than him, and that's it.
That's the only 4 better. Purdy's not there.
Not in my opinion. No, Purdy's
not better than him. Purdy up there or
no? Purdy's top 10, low 10s, 8, 9.
Lamar.
10. No, I'm not. Lamar does the same thing Josh Allen does. So if you want to hate on Josh Allen, you have to look at Lamar and go, okay, he does the same thing. He hasn't won a big game, and he chokes in the playoffs, right? I mean,
the 12 seconds. I keep telling you the Bills defense. 12 seconds. Yeah.
And if Von Miller stays healthy, they have a pass rush. I don't know. Is Tre'Davious White out for the whole year? I know his injuries hurt him.
So you're starting to believe my Eli Manning theory with Josh Allen. That's what you're starting to believe.
I think Josh Allen
gets hot late and he wins the Super Bowl.
I think he could this year, but I think he's better as a whole than Eli Manning.
Eli's a Hall of Famer. I keep telling you that.
Well,
ring.
I keep telling you.
I mean, I can't hate on Eli. He won 2 rings. That's impressive. But give me one game. I'll take Josh Allen.
CJ Stroud.
They both. I mean, if we want to look at Eli Manning, he threw 20 picks in 1 year.
He was terrible a few years. There was a few years where he was getting that's what I mean. That's why I'm saying he got his team hot late and they made playoff runs. That's kind of what you're saying that you're thinking Allen's going to do, right? They're 5-5, so you're expecting them to go.
No, they're better than that now. I think they're 6-5 after.
Are they 6-5 now? Oh yeah, you're right. 6-5.
Did they go to a losing record?
No, you're right. They're 6-5 after the win against the Jets. So they go, so then you go there. So I don't know. They still had a lot to prove to me.
Absolutely. It feels like all these New York teams are get-right games for the Raiders.
Damn Dolphins, I think the Dolphins, though, man, that receiving, you can't underestimate the Hill factor.
I don't underestimate them, but they have
it as a Bengals fan, the receivers put pressure on defense.
But they have a losing record against winning teams. Teams above 500 they struggle with.
Who do you believe in more? I know I heard it on Talking the Gridiron. I had to go at that moment. The Dolphins or the Cowboys?
Oh, the Dolphins. Dolphins without.
Well, it was Bills and Cowboys. It was Bills or Cowboys.
Well, I said Dolphins and Cowboys.
Yeah, it was Bills or Cowboys. But yes, that's what
that was. Cowboys over. Nah,
I got the Bills, Cowboys any day. My opinion.
You have the Bills over the Cowboys?
Rev had the Cowboys, right? I think Rev had the Cowboys.
So do you hate the Cowboys? Not hate, but you don't believe in the Cowboys at all, which is fair. They haven't showed anything in the playoffs ever. Well, since Troy Aikman.
I don't think Jordan. Go ahead, Jordan. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the Cowboys. you mentioned it on Sunday. They solve everything. They have a lot to prove with it. The Bills, though, like I said, for this year, if I was saying it, I said I maybe believe in the Cowboys a little bit more for this year than I would the Bills.
But the Cowboys have been, even under the Romo era, that statement that I made today, where they went toe to toe with Peyton Manning when he was at the Broncos, and each team scored 35 plus points, and man, we were right there at the end. That's always been the kind of the Cowboys mentality. Like as long as we're in the game with the big dogs, Dallas seems content. It just that just seems to be a culture that they haven't gotten rid of, whether it's Garrett, a head coach, or their current head coach, McCarthy. And a lot of that's ownership. Jerry wants to just be in the headlines. Jerry signs the biggest players, whether they're prima donna. His T.O. signing. Yeah,
I mean, he signed Greg Hardy to your point. Like, think about how crazy that is. Like, he signed Greg Hardy, but like.
That's not. Al Davis was there. He'd be competing with him on that one. Do you think they destroy the Commanders then, basically on Thanksgiving, because they're playing a bad team like they always do? Like just win, they win by 20 again or something like that.
I think you'll see the Dallas typical win. I don't see a lot coming from the Commanders. I think they're.
Come on, Sam, Uncle Sam, come on, show up.
I'll be cheering hard, eating my hors d'oeuvres.
But I said that about LA last week, and LA smacked me and Doug right in the face. So, kind of any given Sunday, but kind of going forward, what's your guys' biggest game going into tomorrow? What are you guys more excited to see?
I'm a homer, so my pick. I got 49ers Seahawks. I think it means the most. I think it's only two teams still competing for a division, in my opinion. And it's the same division.
Can I ask Jordan if he's able to make it to an 8:30 start on Thanksgiving after a big meal? Are you able to stay up? That's a 5:30 out here. That's a big difference out there.
Hey, I'm going to do the Marine Corps thing. I'm going to crack a couple of Rippets, a couple of Monsters, maybe go in there, and we'll push on.
Oh my God, I love it.
Nobody's as mentally strong as they.
Nobody's as mentally strong.
I can give you that. I can't. I'm going to be struggling in the second half of the 49ers game. I'm invested. I already know it. That turkey is going to be fighting me to go to bed.
Maybe I'll open the Buckeye Vodka a little bit earlier than the Michigan-Ohio State matchup.
There you go.
You got a big week ahead of you.
Yeah,
you got a big week.
We got the Steelers in town, and we got the Wolverines on Saturday. So Ohio's in a big hate fest this week. So
Tyler, we did a draft on that rivalry. That's how big it is. We're out here in the Bay Area.
When we don't care about college football at all, it's fine.
Michigan,
Ohio State is.
It gets you
fired. As big as it gets.
That's funny. I'd say he said Niners for sure. I guess the Lions won a little bit for me. Usually for me, okay, because the game starts out here at 9:30 a.m. So it's always been like that one where the Mobs getting everything ready, getting everything clean. Doesn't matter if they're playing the Texans in the morning or
yelling at us to clean our room, family time.
Got to make everything look nice. And occasionally you remember the Lions with a big win, like here or there, like Joey Harrington or Roy Williams. They occasionally they pull out a W, but most of the time they're getting their butt kicked or something like that. So the Lions this year they play the Packers though. They might do the butt kicking. So actually that's the game I'm kind of intrigued a little bit this year because actually I'll be able to watch that one a little bit more probably. But it's a better team. I feel it's a better matchup than Commanders Cowboys.
To the Lions' point, sorry, Jordan. Do people believe in Jared Goff as like a big time quarterback?
I feel like people are.
I don't.
I never thought he wasn't a big quarterback. I thought LA eventually became stale for him because of the playoff kind of wins and losses that they had there. But
Did you like Jordan Goff in Detroit? You can win with him.
I think Dan Campbell can take anybody in that system and make them a lot better than what they are. But I think Jared Goff never really hit his ceiling in LA. So I think he's actually experiencing a coach that trusts him, an organization that's putting pieces around him. St. Brown Pierre is playing out of his mind at receiver. David Montgomery's giving him a solid run game, which, They kind of had a run game when he was there in LA, but they were such a 30, 40, 50 passes a game. That's not what he's doing here in Detroit. So you're seeing, I think you're honestly seeing his best attributes right now as a quarterback and as a quarterback-friendly system that kind of protects him and doesn't ask him to go out and pass the ball 40 to 50 times a game and feed it to your slot receivers over and over and over like he was in LA, feeding it to almost person. They kind of got one-dimensional a lot of those games. I mean, the LA had the pass rush for it, but Goff made a lot of late interceptions in LA that cost him a lot of playoff games.
Yeah, so. I feel like Goff's LA trajectory went as Todd Gurley's health went. Like when Todd Gurley was healthy, Goff played really well. He led him to the Super Bowl, but at the beginning of the playoffs, Gurley got hurt, and you saw Goff get kind of worse and worse. The Saints PI call, and then in the Super Bowl, one of the most boring Super Bowls in the world. And then he goes to Detroit, and he's got weapons again with Amon and Gibbs and coach, like you said, who's willing to run the ball. And it's crazy that we're talking about Dan Campbell in this way as like this great head coach after his introductory press conference where he got absolutely ripped. Do you remember that, Jordan? I know Daren, me and you have time, but like we're gonna bite their kneecap. Like it's crazy. I remember Jameel Hill, who I absolutely hate as a sports. Is like this is. I guess there's three white guys talking, but this might not be appropriate. But this is who we're passing over African American head coaches for. And look at him now; he's like one of the favorites for Coach of the Year. Like it's just funny. Like
I mean, you got Detroit's ownership stuck with Matt Millen forever, and
they're stubborn to a fault.
Johnson out of town. I mean,
Matt Millen, you're right. That was a good call. Talk about one of the worst GM stints of all time. That's got to be right up there.
I remember
didn't he draft 4 receivers in a row?
It would be a big picture of a ring.
Yeah, exactly. He had that for sure. I forgot about that.
But yeah, no, it's really good to see, and the fact you got to tip your hat to the organization because his first year as a head coach, I mean, they lost 8 straight. I mean, they're kind of lucky they pulled the plug on some of it.
Yeah,
they got off to a decent start. Then they lost all those games in a row. Then they got hot at the end, barely missing the play. Did they make the playoffs with that win against the Packers? Or they kept the Packers out of the playoffs?
Yeah, they played spoiler, keeping
there was some sort of playoff.
Basically, did Aaron Rodgers' marriage.
Yeah, remember Aaron Rodgers walking off slowly?
He held his hand. He like grabbed Randall Cobb going down like a freaking.
Their tickets to New York already. So.
Oh man, where's Jimmy's brother? Hey, one thing. Just one real quick. Is Joey Burrow in Peyton Manning and Tom Brady's class?
Not without the rings, no.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on. Let's go to the Commanders, Cowboys. We'll move back to that. We talked about it a little bit. Cowboys are 7-3, 4-7. We already know who we think is going to win this game based on the Commanders being not the greatest team. Sam Howell has actually put together a decent statistic.
Everybody hates Rob Rivera.
Year.
Everybody hates Riverboat Ron. That's the problem.
That's a funny. I was always like, how? Because he was a defensive guy. I remember him in Chicago when he was a defensive coordinator of the Hester years, where it was like, oh, let's get a special teams touchdown. And people were saying he should be the head coach of the next team, and then he never got one until he went to Carolina.
Cal Berkeley, shut up.
Did Ron Rivera get fired at the end of the year?
Yeah.
Will Bieniemy be the next head coach? And is Sam Howell the quarterback next year? His numbers say he should be. Like, they're good, but the wins aren't there. He has some decent weapons in Brian Robinson. Terry McLaurin's not bad. Dotson seems to be hit or miss. Biami, whatever his last name is, Biami, I can't think of it, always drops a big ball. But is he the quarterback next year, and is Ron Rivera back?
Rivera's gone. I would say as for the quarterback, I mean they did pick up some draft picks with the trades. None of them were first rounders, obviously, when they did the defensive fire sale. But I mean that's kind of hit or miss. I don't see anybody coming out of the draft. Maybe if one quarterback in the second round, you you might take a look at him. Or Oregon's quarterback if he goes late in the first, and you can kind of take some draft picks and trade up. There's always that possibility, but definitely Ron Rivera's gone. But I'm not it's going to be a camp competition. I think it's kind of be Tampa Bay situation this year when they brought a different quarterback in, and they were like, all right, this is the guy we drafted 2 years ago. This is Baker. Go at it. I think that's kind of what you're going to see from Washington next year at the quarterback. So
Sam Howell, Mac Jones.
Didn't they do that in Washington this year? They had a quarterback who like there's going to be a quarterback, and then Sam Howell got the job. I can't think of it.
I don't think because they shipped the other guy is over at is in Atlanta, and I think he's on an IR right now.
Was he the guy at the beginning of this year?
Yeah,
Heineke. Yeah. That's probably the boringest game of the least intrigue. The Eagles are going to win that division 95% likely. Cowboys will be a wild card team. The Redskins probably won't make the playoffs. But after we eat that big Thanksgiving dinner, we get an exciting game, in my opinion. Obviously, the Niners have lost 11 of 13 games in Seattle the last 13 years. Jordan, I've seen your tweets that Brian Johnson. You hurt his feelings maybe a little bit. Maybe not. Brian's got a little more thick skin.
There a little bit.
More than
we'll start with you, Daren. How do you see this game going? Do you see the Niners pulling this one out? Do you think it'll be close? You did say on TMB that the Niners look like the best team in the NFL when they're going right.
When they're locked and loaded, they look the best to me. There's no team can look better than the 49ers this season. There's like when they got everything going, it's like, oh, that team's not going to lose a game. So I don't think any team can do what they do when they're on all cylinders. I like you guys to win this game on the road. I think you guys are in playoff mode right now. You see the Eagles beat the Chiefs. You can't get 4 losses to their 1 and then take. I don't know. I just feel like this is a game where you guys are going to take it pretty serious. It won't be perfect, but even with the Seattle noise, I'm not. Geno got hurt. I don't like the idea of him back on a short rest either. Brian, you guys bring up the cornerbacks. I do agree. I think that is the weak spot. So Lockett does have history of having games against you guys. So unless they get some big plays, I don't see you guys like some magical 60-yard touchdowns. I see you guys winning kind of handily in this game. To be honest with you, I think you guys win by 20 points
on the road. I hope you're right. I'm hoping you're right. What about you, Jordan? How do you see this thing going? We've seen the tweet.
I like to see Seattle pull off the upset, but on a short week, I don't trust in Drew Lock. I think that'd be abysmal if he had off the bench. I think we kind of touched that on a gridiron a little bit.
Yeah, the Denver guys had a definite perspective on that.
I don't trust Drew Lock at all, but unless Jackson Smith and Jimba and DK Metcalf go absolutely crazy early and keep the pressure on, as much as I want to tease everybody about it, that realistically I got Seattle by 14. I don't think it'll be 20 plus.
Seattle or San Francisco?
I think it's going to be what's up?
You said Seattle by 14?
No, I'm sorry, 49ers by 14.
Okay, yeah.
40 by 14.
I was like, man, he just went against everything.
I'm not drinking Buckeye vodka yet, but I don't know. Definitely got the 49ers by 14. I think it'll be a close first half, but I think you'll see 49ers buckle down and just kind of run away with it. So
that's what I see.
I have a little more concern with this guy. I just have seen it too many times.
11 out of 13 scares you.
It does. Russell Wilson is gone, which is nice to see. That won't be breaking these crazy tackles that you feel like you have a guy in the dirt. If Drew Lock plays, I'm less concerned.
Drew Lock plays. I'm finding the next family special to watch. So.
Exactly. I think this game's playing out like how the playoff game played out. Seahawks were, I think, tied at halftime in the playoffs last year, and then the Niners pulled ahead and won easily. And the score makes it seem like it was a bigger disparity in how the game went. But I think it'll be a little bit of butt clenching in that game for me as a 49er fan.
Do you think it's
I
a
do
big
think
win
they'll
for your
win.
Niners,
I
though?
do think they'll win. Every win in Seattle.
No, I know, but like this one
49er
before
fan.
Philly, does it feel bigger? Is it like, okay, if they lose, it's all right, they're looking ahead to Philly?
Nah, I mean, no loss is okay right now in San Francisco. Like, that's how I feel like that the fan base falls apart at any loss. It's like, oh, something is
Before Philadelphia.
Shanahan has to go, Lynch has to go, or Purdy has to go, depending on how the
Are
game
you talking about
goes.
Brian Johnson?
That is on San Francisco. No, it's K&D, it's the sports radio, it's everything in San Francisco. Everyone's crazy. It doesn't make sense.
Because the Eagles.
But yeah, it's a big game. I think the Eagles are going to win the conference, so we'll have to go through them in the NFC Championship game if we want to win a Super Bowl. Anyway, no matter what happens, whether we win this week, we win next week, I don't think the Eagles are going to lose enough games. I think it's a big game in the fact that I don't want to hear all these San Francisco fans cry for another week like they did for 3 weeks here.
That's fair enough. I can't blame you on that one.
like as an outside observer in the Bay Area, Daren, I know you see it and you're like, relax.
Well, you guys,
right?
We talked about it last night. You guys overreact a little bit to it, of course, but like I would be concerned a little bit. You have the Eagles there putting pressure on you guys week in and week out. If you get to 4 losses and they have 1, and now the Seahawks are tied for you for the division, I mean, just your way to get there becomes immensely harder, which by the time you get to the NFC Championship game, you're spent. Now, that's what I mean. You're not going to get that bye this year probably because they don't have the 2 seed, doesn't get it, as we know now.
Yeah.
So, like that, you know what I mean? So, like, to me, all that stuff plays a factor. Like, you want to play the Saints or like the Bucks, like, or whatever, some team that sneaks in there that kind of gets in there. And maybe it's the Seahawks you end up playing again in the playoffs or something like that. But you want that type of round in the first round so you can get them. So, I don't know.
But
go ahead.
But even if we lose this game, do you believe the Niners won't win the division? See, that's where like my disconnect is.
I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like the division's ours because the Seahawks aren't really that good to me, and the Niners are playing on the road and they'll beat them at home. I feel like
if you guys lose this one though, it feels like then you guys are like you're too back and forth for me. You know what I mean? Like and then I start to lose faith in that, and like I'm like, okay, well, that could happen at any point. So this should be a game you guys are locked and loaded to win. Like we just said, like Drew Lock or Geno Smith. This should be a win on the road.
I think we'll win. I just think it's going to be a very close game, and we'll maybe pull away a little bit at the end. But being on the road, it's going to be closer than the playoff game.
That's true.
That's just how I see it going.
Do they have a Black Friday game this year? I see you.
They do.
Is that actually a thing this year? I thought it was fake when somebody was telling me that.
Yeah, you mentioned the Friday game. I was like, what's he talking about? There's a Friday game?
Well, they're advertising it that it's going to be a black and white game free on Amazon Prime.
Michael Jackson performing hologram at hashtag black and white.
He beat me to the punch on them. That is it. Who plays in that? Is it Dolphins and Patriots? Is that who's in that Friday game?
That's what I had circled.
Dolphins Jets. That's what it is. Dolphins
Jets.
That's it. Jets are making their way on primetime a lot here.
Speaking of the Jets, Aaron Rodgers says he's going to come back practicing on December 2nd. Is there any chance this is true? Obviously, all speculation. We don't have inside information. Do you think anyway he comes back practicing?
Pat McAfee has inside information.
Yeah, from Aaron Rodgers himself.
How much do you think he gets paid to do that, by the way?
Millions.
A lot of money. I think he'll be back. I think he'll try to be back by the last week of the season. I don't think he'll be back that soon. If they're out of it, why rush it?
Why come back at all if you're out of it?
Just to prove something for him. He just seems like kind of that type of guy.
Is it the anti-vaccine? He's going, look, anti-vaccine, you heal a lot quicker. Does he play
the Chiefs the last game? does he play Kelce the last game of the year?
Does he?
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, there's a lot of football in this weekend. You got the you got that too. The next day after, college football everywhere during the week, during there too.
They got the Penn State Michigan State game on Friday as well.
Penn State, Michigan. Penn State. Nobody does third place like Penn State, right? It's crazy how often they get. It's just nuts. They just can't get out of it. So.
They just need to go. If they went to the other side of the Big Ten, they'd be dominant.
Good luck with that. It's like Alabama. I always feel like I'm like, how do they always make it over there? Like they win it by. I feel like they've clinched by like 4 weeks ago. I'm like, how did that happen? How that?
They have 2 losses.
When you're you're week 13 and you're playing Chattanooga State. I want to know how do you get that on the schedule?
Oh, Nicholas Saban. It's a good old Saint Nick there.
Usually, you open up to the cupcake team. They that's how they get their confidence at the end of the year. You put up 63 points in week 13. You're feeling pretty good about yourself.
Oh, definitely feeling good about yourself then. Are you coming on talking the gridiron ever, Tyler? One of these nights before. We gotta get you on. We gotta get you on one time.
Sundays are tough for me.
We gotta get you. Maybe one during the holidays. You won't work on Monday. We gotta get you on.
I'll try my darndest.
We gotta get you
Jordan,
on.
having you on. I mentioned this. We talked about it when I did TMB and Brian had his little coordinary with me. We talked a lot of college football actually because somehow Ohio State came up. That number 44, that damn Samoan from Ohio State. I saw you tweet about him again. That's who you want the Bengals to draft. Is that correct?
JT To'omoa, absolutely.
Is he still performing up to? Because I don't see him in any top 10s. I thought he was a top 10 pick going into this year. Because I mean, obviously, I'm not the biggest caller. You're more of a is he not a top 10 pick? He's top first round. Where's he falling in the draft?
He'd be late first round, early second round.
From the was defense. That how it was when going into the season? Because I felt like last year it was like this guy's the best interior defensive lineman in the draft.
Well, he had the game against Penn State where he had an interception, return for a touchdown, 2 sacks, and a batted down ball. So that's what got a lot of people talking about him nationwide. But he's been a good rotational piece for Ohio State. But yeah, I think definitely worth. Definitely going to ring a lot of bells. Probably around 28 to 31, or early day 2, 32.
Sounds like a Steeler. Sounds like a Steeler. Sounds like Steelers like that.
Sounds like a Brown to me.
I'm sure. Well, if DeJuan Jones, told everybody he wanted to play in the NBA and dropped out of the second and first round, so. He just gave up 0 sacks against top-tier defense last week. So
it's going to be that game this week's going to be fun. That's that Michigan-Ohio State game. Can't wait for that one. I'm assuming it's another early start. It always is for us.
Because of the fan bases, they will never play it outside of 12 o'clock. It'll always be a 12 o'clock game.
Is that because people get too drunk?
Correct. That's really
What are
really.
your
that's why it'll never be a primetime game.
That's so funny.
On the Jim Harbaugh situation. As an Ohio State fan, just 100% transparency. You hate the guy. You think he's key like no one else is. You think it's pretty common in college football for this to be happening. He's being targeted.
I mean, to the extent that they did it, I think every college team cheats in their own way. But to personally send a representative out to different schools wearing different schools' logos and, kind of taken from their playbooks, that seems kind of far. Sign stealing's always kind of been a thing, but to the extent that Michigan did it, to the information I have read, the extent that Michigan did it, that's ridiculous. So, I think he deserves a 3-game suspension. I never, as somebody that watched Ohio State go through to a 13-0 season and was not bowl eligible that year, I never want to see it taken away from the athletes. So I'm glad that the Big Ten and NCAA hasn't put a bowl ban on them yet. I hope that stands overall because you never want to take anything from anybody's career or any athletics, especially going on a big stage. If they do beat Ohio State, they're going to the playoffs. But I think Harbaugh as a person, I think he's just kind of a piece of shit. So I'm glad to see him go 3 games, to go that extent of cheating. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. I've heard it, but that seems to be just one too much for my liking.
what I heard in a couple weeks ago, he said that they're America's team.
Well,
everybody likes a good underdog.
Well, Ryan Day said it's Ohio.
Michigan, America's team. My God.
He said Michigan's America's team, and now they're all wearing, Michigan versus everybody, and that's, to me that's bullshit because Ryan Day, when he went on his rant, as much as I enjoyed it, calling out Lou Holtz, I don't know if I would have called him out individually. He said it's Ohio versus the world after the Notre Dame win, and now you got Michigan players walking around with that shit on their shirt.
Oh yeah, who believes Michigan? Nobody.
What? That was the San Francisco's rally call back in the day when he was a Niners coach. What are your thoughts on Ryan Day? I've heard Ohio State fans very pessimistic about what he does in big games. I'm sorry to get away from the NFL talk at this point, but
no, I mean to me, Ryan Day it's been a recruiting thing. He took on really Urban's team in the first 2 years that he was in there. It was Urban's recruiting class, and the big questions around this area being from the state of Ohio was that could he continue it? And so far, I mean, wide receiver wise, he's continued it. But he hasn't answered a lot of calls on defense, and he's undefeated against the Big Ten except for Michigan, where Urban Meyer had a perfect record against it. And that's you could lose all games all season long, you will still have a job at Ohio State if you win the one in late November. And
is that true?
That's where all the marbles are here in this state. We'll go out in freak out mode. It doesn't matter how many games you win all year long. If you lose against Michigan, you don't belong, and that's kind of the standard that has been around forever. I mean, you look at all the from the Jim Trussell era, even on up to Woody Hayes, his famous, grab the Michigan player right off the fucking field, punch him in the face, and that ended his career. So I mean that's been the
Bobby Knight of college football.
I forgot about that sweatshirt he wears all the time. I forgot about that.
The old sweater man.
That was crazy.
They say Woody's looking up. They don't say Woody's looking down. So.
Yeah. Well, that's why we did a draft. I mean, these teams have some of the best players in the last 40, 50 years of NFL football, let alone college football. So that was the thing that's always – and they won a lot of Heisman. That was the other thing. A lot of these teams have won a lot of Heisman too with it too. So I got to go, though, Tyler. Jordan, I got a family call with me, though, with that. Go ahead, T.
I got one quick question before we all head off. What fantasy football player is going to score the most points this Thursday night? We're not counting Friday. This Thursday night. This Thursday. So you have San Francisco, Seattle, Dallas, Commanders, and then Detroit, Green Bay. One single player. Who scores the most fantasy points this Thursday? We'll go Daren, Jordan, and then I'll finish.
I'm going to say CD Lamb.
I'm gonna agree with him and say CD Lamb. I think Dallas is going to do what Dallas does best against bad teams and score a lot of points.
I'm going to go out on a limb and just because I hate the Cowboys. I'm going Terry McLaurin. I hope he has a big week. Just to be different.
I love Ohio State representation, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always thinking of you guys.
I like
that. That's it for this week. Unless, Jordan, you have anything else you want to add? Any subjects you want to touch on?
No, we're just going to sign off here. Thank you, Daren, for stopping in.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Thank you, Tyler, for coming on with me and having this thing special. And for Vareity Sports Network, let's subscribe to us. Those who watch us, we thank you. Everybody have a safe Thanksgiving. Go with your families. Military serving overseas, come home safe. We love you guys. All branches. You guys are eating and having a safe time over there. And God bless America. God bless you guys. And we'll see you guys on Sunday. And until then, I'm signing off. Have a good weekend.
Please.